the world of wildlife photography, equipment matters. The latest and greatest gear can help you to nail that perfect shot, be it through blazingly fast autofocus or more clicks per second, or having such good image stabilization that you can shoot a flying bird at a 30-second long exposure, or so they say. I've been using Nikon cameras since 2017, so I first started with the Nikon Z6II DSLR, and then used it for a couple of years, decided that mirrorless was the way to go and switched over to the Z50. Now I have the Z6II, and paired with this FTZ adapter, this Z6II and 200 to 500mm f5.6 combination has been my go-to for wildlife photography and videography. So what I'm going to tell you here is my experience using this particular combination, what I like, what I think could be improved on, and show you some of the results that I've gotten with this combination. I used to think that full-frame cameras were nothing to write home about. I started with smaller sensors when I started doing wildlife photography back in 2014. But I think I can attest to most of you out there, when we switch over to a full-frame ecosystem, the difference is rather noticeable. Better dynamic range, better low-light performance, better pretty much everything. Though one of the things I do miss about using a crop sensor body is the reach. So a 500mm on this camera right here is 500mm of course, but paired with a crop sensor camera that gives me a little bit more reach, up to 750mm. And in wildlife photography, I think reach is really important, so that's one of the reasons why I keep my Z50 sticking around. By far the biggest improvement I've seen switching from a DSLR to a mirrorless is actually the improved video performance. So autofocus in video was a luxury that I've never got to experience until I got my Z50, and the Z6II actually takes it up a notch. There's so much to love about the video specs on the Z6II. I shoot a lot of wildlife videos, maybe even more so than photographs. So back when I was using a DSLR, I actually had to lug around a tripod and manually focus while I was filming. But now today with the Z6II, the stabilization is just ridiculously good that I can just get away with using a monopod or even sometimes going handheld. Sometimes I just completely trust the camera to do the autofocusing for me. So if you leave it on to AFF or autofocus full-time mode, it just does the autofocus job for you. And that frees me up to actually focus more on the composition or the camera movement while filming. Now, being able to use this, the electronic viewfinder, has been a huge plus as well for me while filming. So the thing is, these electronic viewfinders actually add a third point of contact while filming, which adds to the stability of course. And also in bright sunny conditions where you can't really see the screen that well, the EVF is a great option for you to keep looking at what you're shooting at. Now, one of the things that most people tend to miss out or not talk about is actually the fact that using the EVF for filming actually helps you find your subject faster. Now, those of us who have been using long telephoto lenses for filming will know the pain of trying to find the subject with the LCD screen. So the EVF is a lot more accurate when it comes to finding your subjects quickly. Most consumer cameras can shoot 4K, and the Z6II is no exception of course. This thing can actually shoot in 4K 60 as well, which is an added bonus, although it comes with a 1.5 times crop, which I actually don't exactly mind, because in wildlife photography we are always trying to look for more reach. The thing is that most people these days need to adapt their content for both horizontal and vertical formats for various platforms on social media, so definitely having 4K is an essential feature. Let's talk about this lens, the good old 200 to 500mm f5.6. Now this is an old lens by today's standards, but paired with the FTZ adapter, actually it's still pretty good. The autofocus is fast, it's silent, and it's accurate. I used to own a Tamron 150 to 600 prior to this lens, and although there is an additional 100mm advantage on there, actually it's not that noticeable. What I do like about this lens is its constant aperture of f5.6. So those of you who do video work out there will know that being able to keep the aperture constant during zooming is very essential. Basically, when I want to go from a wide shot to a tighter shot, I don't see any exposure changes at all. This is also generally why I prefer zooms over primes when it comes to shooting wildlife. I like the flexibility of being able to go from close to a wider shot with just a turn of a wrist instead of needing to move my entire body. So generally these zoom lenses tend to be smaller and maybe lighter as well compared to some of the larger primes out there, which definitely is a bonus if you want to be more mobile in the field. Now there's so much to love about this combination, the Z6II with the 200 to 500, but there are definitely some areas which I think can see some improvement as well. One of the things that I really want to see is actually a flip out screen. So instead of this tilty screen, what would be nice is having a fully flipped out articulating screen for both photographers and videographers. I think they would both appreciate that. The size of these 200 to 500 is also considered fairly large when you compare it to some of the other competitors with similar focal ranges out there. So this makes it a little bit bulkier to carry around. But I do believe the Nikon Z system is coming up with their own 200 to 600mm lens sometime later this year. So definitely I think that would be a smaller package and maybe a lighter package as well, so I can't wait to try that out. So far, my experience with the Nikon Z6II and this 200 to 500 has been largely positive. Sure, there may be some areas for improvement, or maybe some of the technology like its autofocus may not be on par to some of the other cameras that are out there today, but you learn how to work around its shortcomings. For me, the jump from a DSLR to a mirrorless camera has been quite phenomenal, and I'm still quite blown away by a lot of the features that these mirrorless cameras provide. Sure, I mean, they don't exactly improve your skill as a photographer. After all, you have to go out there and practice. That makes you better, right? But it does make your life out in the field a lot easier with these new features. If you enjoyed this review, feel free to subscribe or leave a comment down below if you have this combination or would love to own it or try it out.